back to Action Figure Imagery Toy Reviews, everyone. Today we're looking at Masters of the Universe He-Man, Masters of the Universe Origins figure, He-Man figure. And it looks like Masters of the Universe is back, or is about to come back, or it's already back, depending on how you look at it, because these figures are now in Walmart stores around the country. First time in a long time where we had He-Man figures inside of a retail store. Classics was mainly an internet online franchise where you buy the figures online. The only way you could get Classics was in person, mainly was through specialty comic book stores. But now Origins brings He-Man and the Master Universe back to retail stores, and this is original He-Man. You see got the same type of artwork as the original vintage packaging, and the blue starry sky, new for 2020. Same He-Man description as in the vintage line, most powerful man in the universe. Modern pose and retro play. Know what they mean by that? Modern day articulation, but vintage style looks. Side of the packaging, the left side of the packaging, turn it around. See the artwork on the back, and the other figures available in the first wave, and homage to the vintage packaging of instructions on what you can do with the figure feature wise, and right side of the packaging right here. I'm sorry, this is the left side of the packaging. This is left side, and this is the right. Okay, now let's have a look at He-Man outside of the packaging. Okay, everyone, here's He-Man out of the packaging. It looks like Masters of the Universe is back, at least for now. And these Masters of the Universe Origin figures are based on the looks of the original figures from the 1980s, the original vintage figures from the 80s. However, they have the articulation of the Masters of the Universe classics, so they are based on the looks of the vintage figures and with the articulation of the classic figures. This He-Man figure is just so reminiscent of the old 1980s vintage version. He comes with all three of his weapon accessories: the axe, the power sword, or the sword of power, whichever you prefer to call it, and his shield. And so let's get a closer look at He-Man. Let's start off first with the articulation. Okay, everyone, let's look at the articulation on He-Man. See, let me take the weapons out real quick and go back to the weapons later. Put them down. Okay, first, let's start off with He-Man's head. And a closer look at the figure right there. Okay. Head can move down that far. Back. That's about as far up as it can move. Of course, side to side head movement. Arm. It's got a pivot right here, but no pivot right here at the shoulder. But you can see he can twist his arm still a little bit like that. You got a swivel at the elbow, swivel at the wrist. No ab crunch, doesn't need one. Waist twists around like the old figure, 360. Leg articulation. Moves back and forth. You can bend at the knees like that much. Go forward. Swivel at the ankle. Okay. And this, as for designs, kind of similar to the old Master Universe vintage He-Man figure in a way, and kind of not in a way. The old vintage He-Man figure, if you notice, didn't have these wrist bracelets colored. They were the same color as the skin of the figure. But now these braces are colored. On the vintage figure, these are red with the rest of the boots. Now they're yellow. So that's a change right there from the vintage. And also, what this figure has that the vintage didn't have is on the back of the armor, pouch for his sword. The vintage figure did not have this. Now, Masters of the Universe Origins He-Man does have it. Similar to the cartoon, this old Filmation cartoon now. Now you don't have to put He-Man's sword here with the vintage figure. You had to put it on almost in his bag. He didn't have a holster for a sword. Now he does. So that's good to see. As for He-Man's weapons, let's look at those real quick. Here's the Sword of Power, Power Sword. It's similar to the old vintage 80 sword in that it got the thing where it won't fall out of his hand. In a Filmation cartoon, this isn't on. It's just for the toy to keep the sword from falling out of his hand. And also similar to the old vintage, it's got the connections where you connect He-Man's sword to Skeletor's sword, similar to the old school way where the old figures were made. And here's He-Man's shield. It's pretty basic looking, not much designs other than these circles and the orange designs is the back of it. And the axe is pretty basic looking too, but still good job by Mattel. Not much designs, just like a basic looking axe, not much detail, not many designs, but that's okay. Fine with that. It's all good still. Okay, folks, there's He-Man right inside of the packaging. Reminds me of the old days of the 1980s, seeing this classic vintage packaging. There's a right side view of the packaging. He-Man still in the bubble packaging. Left side view of the packaging. There, carved back. See all the figures in the first wave, the first 6 figures. And He-Man out of the packaging. So you can see his shield and weapons are behind him, and there's how tall he is, right around 5 inches, a little over 5 inches tall, as you can see. There's my best efforts at the by the power of Grayskull pose. My best efforts at making him pose Filmation style by the power of Grayskull. My efforts at making him say, "I have the power." My best efforts at the I have the power pose. Right there. And there's, you know how He-Man uses his sword in a Filmation cartoon to deflect laser bolts? Well, that's my effort right there. Side view, the sword inside of his holster. Left side view, rather. I'm sorry, that's left side view. The previous was right side view. That's left side view right there. And there's He-Man out the packaging again. Weapons in hand. And there's the card back scan this time, and the other one was a photograph. This is a scan right here. Okay, folks, here you see the power swords. They fit perfectly together. These are the power swords of the vintage. Not vintage, but the Origins Master vs. Skeletor and He-Man figures. They fit very well together, just like the vintage figure swords fit together. There's Master vs. Vintage figure holding an Origin sword. As you can see, the Origins power sword fits in real well of the He-Man vintage figure, as you can see in the picture. I'm not sure how those black stains got on my vintage He-Man figure. There's a comparison shot between Origins He-Man and vintage He-Man figure. Notice that the Origins He-Man figure is much taller than the vintage. However, you can make these figures the same height by bending the knees of the Origins figure. There's another comparison shot between Origins and vintage. But the next pic is going to show how you can make Origins and vintage figures the same height. And by bending the knees of the Origins figure. Right here. Now Origins and vintage He-Man are the same height because the knees of the Origins figures are now bent. So the question, yes, you can blend in Master Universe Origins with the vintage figures. If you can lower the height of the Origins figures by bending their knees. And there's the mini comic that came with the first wave, known as Beast Barrage. The plot is basic and simple. Skeletor tries to kidnap Prince Adam. The cast of characters for the Evil Warriors include Skeletor, Beastman, and Evil Lyn, along with the Shadow Beasts. And for the Heroic Warriors, includes Prince Adam, Teela, and Man-at-Arms. And the Shadow Beasts seem to be smaller this time. They seem like they've shrunken. They're usually portrayed as large beasts that look to be 10 feet tall, but this time they look like they're no taller than Beastman himself. And this is, as already mentioned, this is the mini comic that comes with the first wave of figures. All 6 of the figures in the first wave come with the same mini comic, so unlike vintage, there are no individual mini comics for each figure, unlike the vintage line. And here's Masters of the Universe Origins He-Man with the Masters of the Universe Origins Skeletor figure side-by-side comparison shot. And Skeletor will be the next figure to be reviewed in the Origins line on this channel. Everyone, that's it for this review. Everyone have a blessed day. I hope you enjoyed this review, and we'll see you in the next video.